here we go. The Dead South performs the recap on Diddy TV. Memphis, Tennessee.
Hello, we're the Dead South, and this first song is called The Recap. No story on this one.
You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch.
Well, we're all wasted in a bar somewhere downtown. Well, the man walks up and pokes me with a knife and said, man, I'm gonna send you to hell. Once again, now I stared him straight in the eyes. I said, oh boy, you better fucking run. I'm sitting here just a slamming down beers, and now it's time to have some fun. Whoa. Oh, well, he hit me hard, yeah, he hit me good, and then I fell to the ground. But I kicked him fast, I kicked him real swift, and he came up tumbling down. Took a slap at me, and then he cut my gut, but I kicked him down to the floor. I took his head and slammed it into the bowl. I don't think you'll come around no more. Whoa.
This is what I imagine Steve-O singing sounds like. It's like super breathy and a little damaged. This guy sounds like he smokes. Doesn't take anything away from the actual passion and the performability of this song, but it's super cool.
I've been drinking here for so many damn years, trying to recount my life. Every night, trouble finds my side, and I can't help but fight with a bottle of Jack and a tin of Skull. And I'll be sticking around until the day man will pull me away, and I can rest my soul.
So one thing we haven't talked about in a little while is the idea of vocal disability and how it's actually really important for certain styles of music. Vocal disability being literal physical vocal damage that has actually turned the voice into a more descriptive tool for storytelling, in that when you hear a voice that has damage, you're more emotionally connected because of whatever caused that damage. So this is a voice that sounds like it could have some damage from smoking, damage from overuse. The raspiness creates more depth of telling in the story. That's what musical disability is about. We're not saying, we're not using disability in the sense of like the Disability Works Act. we're using disability. Yeah, no, this is an example of vocal disability because of how, you know, the voice has a reduced ability to do things that the voice is meant to do because of something that happened. And in the context of a story like this, we're talking about, you know, drinking and smoking. We're talking about, country music stuff, right? I'm not a country music guy, but when in country music, there's country music stuff, and it's hard times, it's bluesy stuff, right? Yeah, it's if you have a cold and you make a sound, you can hear. Listening to someone who has a cold and they speak, you can hear a difference in their voice, and that tells our ear, oh, that person's sick. I should probably stay away from them. Someone who has vocal disability like this, from too much smoking, too much vice, right? Smoking, drinking, that hurts your voice. Overuse, using your voice too much, that also hurts your voice. And you can hear what those causes are without explicitly knowing what they are. And so in that sense, the disability, the lowered ability of the voice caused by things that happened in their life, adds another element of storytelling and an element that your ear picks up on. So this guy, we hear that there's more behind his character because of what we hear in his voice, which adds a level of conviction and ethos to what he's singing, and it takes you deeper into the story that he's singing about because he's a more convincing character because of his vocal disability. That's a really important point in a lot of different genres of music, and how, yeah, it's an old sword swallowing injury. So he's an old sword swallower, and he's telling us about how rough his life was swallowing swords. And that story becomes more convincing because we hear the damage that sword swallowing has done to his voice, right? That's it. It's the same idea. And you don't need to understand that concept to understand what's happened, because you just hear it implicitly in the voice. There's some history behind here, right? Right? I think that makes sense.
Well, we're all wasted in a bar somewhere downtown. Well, I walks up and pokes me with the knife and said, man, I'm gonna send you to hell. Once again, now I stared him straight in the eyes. I said, oh boy, this is the day. Then I grabbed that knife, I stabbed him straight in my eye. Then I fell to my knees. Whoa. My side, and I can't help but fight with a bottle of Jack and a tin of skull. Tonight I'm going home. Today's the day a man pulled me away. I can rest my soul.
Creeper Day, I hear you about how I'm starting to sound like Cosmic making up stories, but when we listen to music, similarly to how we would like read a book, aren't we still building stories in our head? Like, isn't when you listen to music and you hear and you feel something and you are told a story by a song, aren't you doing just that? You're just creating a story in your head based on what's going into your ears. It's never a perfect analysis. What makes me laugh so much is when people in YouTube comments is like, especially on those big reactions we did last week to like the Poet and the Pendulum and Greatest Show on Earth, people were like, you're wrong, this is what it is because it makes more sense. And I'm like, yeah, it makes more sense to you, but like we all create different stories in our head when we hear different kinds of music. So I don't discount Cosmic entirely, right? Life runs on the stories, and stories are how we explain life to ourselves in our brain. right? And that's what's great about music. It's the same thing as good literature. Our brains will take in information and we will create something out of it. And it's not going to be the same exactly as anyone else's story that they create. Right? No, Cosmic. I didn't say no. Anyway, yeah, it's all about manifestation. That's how we do it. The human mind is powerful. We manifest crazy stuff. Absolutely, Bravaltaz. Absolutely. Dead South is a really interesting sound. Pathoon, thank you for suggesting that, because that is a really interesting sound. And it was a perfect example for covering that topic of vocal disability, music disability, because that it was perfect. Really interesting sound. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Everything is up to interpretation, guys. There's no... I mean, at this point, when people argue about, like, who's better than whoever, it's so dumb, dude. It's whatever you want it to be.